So I just hope you had a wonderful lunch, enjoying the sun that Madeira is here to offer, of course. And welcome back for this afternoon of the Madeira Digital Transformation Summit. And to kick off things, we are joined by world-class experts who bridges the gap between mechanical engineer and IT, representing the Fraunhofer Institute, the Technical University of Berlin, and TU Applied Science Wildau. He is a pioneer in the global system that makes agile production and digital twins a reality. So please join in welcome the head of business process and factory management at the Fraunhofer Institute, Thomas Keynote.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And of course, I'm quite honored, even by this introduction. But I'm happy here because I'm together with you. And I just counted the years together with Ricardo, with Maria Jose, and all the others, Raul, for instance, and this makes me happy. So it's not about, let me say, to be honored by a pioneer, because all of you are pioneers. So now looking to an subject we had in the beginning of the interoperability research in the end of the 90s was very much prominent. This was about enterprise modeling. Today it disappears a little bit, and there are some reasons, and I will come with it. And remember the last I-ESA conference where I talked about digital product passport and looking as well to Maria Jose and Ricardo, because at this point in time, I was just appointed as a chair of the CENELEC JTC 24. And both didn't explain me that this is so an exhausting work. So I have to blame you. But anyhow, now we finished with that to some extent. So our standards, 6 out of the 8 standards are now voted by 100% by the national standardization bodies. So, but anyhow, thank you so much first. And now we are coming to the issue of enterprise modeling. Because we have today afterwards a panel discussion about artificial intelligence. And you see my hair, it's gray, so I'm not a pioneer in artificial intelligence. But I give you some insights from at least a gray-haired person in order to give some inspirations of what we can do and maybe what we can do not. So this means I will come a very short brief notice about the status of enterprise modeling. And by the way, one of our pioneers could not be here. This is Guy Domain. This is my role model in enterprise modeling, or one of the role models. And I would like to give my regards to all of them who will meet him in Bordeaux next time. Then I will come to the opportunities for AI and of course to some exclusions. So, conclusion, sorry. We started with enterprise modeling already in the 1780s in order to discover what's in companies, what is between companies. And we had always some challenges. And now we face even more challenges. I just take this slide to give you the idea how about the business dynamics we have today. And this will not disappear in the next time. We will have always crazy presidents. We will have different, let me say, events and all these things where we have to cover this dynamic even in our interoperability research. And then I thought about our old days in the Athena IP project. And I'm not quite sure, I do not see Maria Jose. She was, there's Maria. So one of our pilots was the supply chain in furniture, for instance, and it took us. The plan was just after 1 year to have a pilot or a model of our use case and have some requirements, and then we can start research. But in total, in order to be honest, after 1.5 years, we had something what is useful. And now I see as well Nicola, because he had the pilot from Airbus at this point in time. I think at this point in time it was EIDS, right? But anyhow, so in the scenes compared to the business dynamics we need, yeah. So from one day to another, we have an increase of tax by 30%. And on the other hand, it took us 1.5 years to check what's happened in a company. And this at least gives us an idea, okay, something must be wrong with our notion and our approaches for enterprise modeling. So, and it's not only that it takes too much time or it is too much resource consuming, yeah, to come from the reality of a furniture company to have a nice model and then come back to the reality. It's even more. So we have at least outdated models. As I mentioned, when we are finishing with a model, at least the changes to the business were already happened 3 times. So on the other hand, you see, we had large interviews. Yeah? So I can remember our interviews with Maria Jose, with Nicola, but as well in CRF. And this was always very much biased. Yeah, and this is really a problem what we have. On the other hand, at this point in time, we tried to validate the models. And this was more or less manually done without really having very good methodologies. And last but not least, at the end, I would guess all these nice requirements models were not be guiding for the people in Airbus or even in IDEA. So, and this is the reality we are facing. Even at this point in time for interoperability, we had one pillar next to ontologies and IT platform was enterprise modeling. So, and now what we can do, because if enterprise modeling or enterprise architecture is a horse, and we would like to look for a car or whatever, what is a car? And I do not see an alternative for that. So looking to artificial intelligence, maybe we can make with artificial intelligence out of our horse a car. Could be happen. So, and this already started in the early Athena IP project. So we started with the process mining already in the beginning of 2000. There were the first activities on that for governance monitoring. We thought about modeling by voice, by gestures or by documents already at this point in time, how to generate models automatically. We had a look with the process mining and with anomaly detection already as well in these times. So from the improvement, I will give you some ideas how to generate much more scenarios automatically out of given models. From the implementation perspective, there is the idea since a long time with linked data to link existing data to the models and to generate. And in the operations, of course, this was coming out end of the 2000s with agent-based modeling, with the agent-based control, but as well with matching and scraping. So, and of course, even in our institute, and my colleagues are here, we elaborated a lot of solutions approaches for that. So on the left side, for instance, this is my colleague, Nicole. She performed modeling by gestures in a conference or in a conference in Nanjing in 2016. Means having some movements and the model was elaborated. Was quite interesting. We discussed in the I-ESA conference before the last one, the model-based surveillance map with AI-supported retrieval and analysis, impact analysis of news for companies. What does it mean if in Shanghai, for instance, the harbor is closed? What does it mean for my business? And last but not least, Frank Walter is here. We elaborated solutions for scraping and matching. If there is a supplier shortage somewhere, what you can do to get another one from an automatic perspective. But looking to that, all of them went not in an industrial environment. Yeah, we explored this even in research projects, in EU national ones, and all these things. But for us, what is really counting as Fraunhofer are the bilateral industrial projects, because then the company is paying for the implementation. And I have to say, no, we are here far away from that, and we have to look into that. So, and now I come to my hobby horse since the last 3 years, means the digital product passport. Give you some ideas how we can elaborate and how we can enable our enterprise modeling capabilities with AI. This is just a theoretical input. I think I demonstrated this last time as well. So this is our, so to speak, complex DPP system in Europe, because we invented this. This means we have the DPP, digital product passport system and services, the distributed data. We have the European Commission centralized service, means the registry and the web portal. And we have the third-party services, which are, let me say, in the place if the economic operator, means the one who is bringing a product into the market, disappears. So, and based on that and some data carrier, you get at least the data mandatory and even voluntary data. And we developed this in the last, let me say, 5-6 years. So there is as well an example with the battery pass. And of course, for some of you, you know what it means. If you have somewhere a centralized database, is fine. But when this has to interact with 3 different ones and in a different way, distributed way, then it's even becoming complex. And just to motivate for you to look in this DPP research and development, it's not just batteries for a car, at least all products which are in the European Union, except food and pharmaceutical products, will become or will get digital product passports in the near future, step by step. So this means this has an impact for our entire economy. Of course, there are some, let me say, voices saying, oh, a new bureaucracy issue, yeah, with all these DPP. But it's not quite true. So one part is, of course, with this DPP, our authorities, our politics can now get numbers, data, and facts in order to have the possibility for taking the right decisions. For instance, for circularity. We have the issue of more effective market surveillance. What does it mean? Today, European Commissioner, means the market surveillance, is able to check the imported products by passes and all these things from Temu, Shein by 0.05%. All the others are not checked. So with the DPP, it becomes different, because before you import, you have to show the DPP and you have to show conformity. Yeah. So looking now to the consumer, this is one of the major objectives of European Commission, to give the consumer the opportunity to have informed decisions. Yeah. This is not just about energy label, as well all the other items, for instance, repairability. And all of you know all the nice examples in your household. Yeah? You buy an expensive part or a product, a nice product, and a small product, a small part is broken. And then you have to exchange everything. In the future, we will have a repairability score. They can buy, okay, can decide this is very cheap maybe, but you cannot repair. Or it's maybe a little bit more expensive, but you are able to repair. And this is part of the European Commission's objective here. And even for the industry, a lot of industries say, oh, this is too much and bureaucracy and all these things. There exist today already examples, exceptions, where companies make business out of that. So because you can imagine you are a producer, an OEM, and you give your product to a retail company, then you are out of the game. You don't know what's happened with your product after it's sold. With the DPP, it's different. So, and there exists a lot of cases and companies who do business with that. So, now coming to my other hobby horse, this is battery pass. And this is an example from our industry research, or let me say industry projects. This is about an automotive OEM who has to implement battery pass until 18th of February next year. So, and you see the complexity, because this company is producing cars all over the world, even electrical cars with batteries. They are having a lot of diversity of their cars in total, yeah, from sportive cars until lorries. They have to deal with very different regulations worldwide. Nicola knows this from Airbus, I guess, that there are different regulations in US, in South America, and even in Europe, and how to cover all of these things. And last but not least, such a big company with more than 40 plants just having batteries in a portfolio, they have a different level of digitization. And all of this come into the game. And I can tell you with just simple use case diagrams, forget it. You cannot touch it. So what we had done is we had developed in the Battery Pass project until 2024 this kind of enterprise model, which is dealing with data governance, data flow, and the entire value stream in a normalized way. This means this is technology neutral and covering all the variants along the value chain of a battery with all the data points you have to report and all these things. So what is interesting is this is a detailed model which as well addresses all the standards, the regulations you have to fulfill, and even master technologies for that from the value stream, but as well from the perspective of all the data. Here you see some data points and all the resources you need for executing. And what we had done is to bring this complexity into this model in order to see how the data flow has to be organized in this company, how the organization has to be set up, the process, and even IT. And now comes to data. So this OEM went to us and said, okay, we expect you need 6 months to cover all these things. In fact, for the standard business, it was just 2 weeks by having this model. So, but now comes to the drawback. Then all the exceptions came into the game. Means when exactly this company is not just producing batteries for their own car, as well for other brands. And this is typically happen in automotive industry. All you know the collaboration between BMW and Renault when they developed the common 3-cylinder combustion engine. So this means, to some extent, the engine production of BMW goes to Renault and vice versa. So how to deal with all these changes and so on. And these are these exceptions. And as you can see, this took us the other time. 1 month and 1 year in total to cover all the exceptions and how to deal with that. And of course, at the beginning, it was fine and nice and we were really happy. But at the end, it was really a burden. Yeah. So Another case exactly in a battery pass. When you are developing all these complex systems, you have to develop the test cases. You can imagine what does it mean. Those models are quite big. How to derive from that the right test cases. And even we had this standard model already. It took us as well. You can see we started in May 2025 to develop all these things for the test environment. And we will launch this system open source in 2026 in June. It's much too long. You can imagine if the business is changing, if the regulation is changing, if standardization is changing, it will be a burden. So, and now looking to some issues where we could see, okay, there is something inside. So in our unit, for instance, we are working on the automated scenario generation for simulation models. This means by having building blocks and the interface, you see this is this natural language, we can generate it instead of just having 5 simulation scenarios, 1,000 in the same time. This could be one impact or one aspect how to generate at least the scenarios for testing in the future. And again, there is this issue to say, okay, why we are using AI nicely in our labs, in research projects where there is no risk. And this is my assumption. To one extent, our companies would like to have 100% precision and completeness. Yeah? They're always asking me, oh, when you are using this technology, to which extent this is complete, because I need this. You can imagine when you have to cover the standards and the regulations of a certain region in the world, you need to be assured. Yeah. The second is always a nice excuse of my colleagues in AI, we do not have the right data and the trusted data and all these things. And this gives us the problem, okay, if we would like to have real impact, we need much more time for the data qualification. And last but not least, in all of our projects, we have the issue of data security. So now we would say, okay, forget it, this AI-based improvement of the capabilities for enterprise modeling. But there is some hope. This is an example which is maybe interesting for others too. In a current industry project where at least a company who is producing parts, not only batteries as well, electronics and all these things worldwide, they would like to know how to deal with regulation standards and how they have to apply and have to consider the standards in their entire system. And for that, we developed at least based off the context model of this enterprise model, an AI system which is looking for the regulations, the standards, and how to apply and check, is this relevant or not? Well, maybe it works, yeah. So this means this is an automatic detection of existing standards, activities on that, and to some extent, to which extent we have to have it to consider with the, for instance, this is a relevance estimation, and this is what this company really acknowledged. So, next one is even more hope because we recently started a new project by starting with a demonstrator. So we just started in March, but we started with the idea in May 2025 because you know the DPP is normally applicable for new products after 2027, 8, and so on. But looking to the reality of long-lasting products, like cars, like houses and so on. They stay for 20, 30 years before they started to be renovated. This means today you have a DPP created, but you use for circularity issues just in 20 years. So how's the motivation for applying this? And there was the request from our partner saying, Thomas, we have the biggest problem in Germany by having 14 million houses needs to be renovated in the next years. And of course, when you are asking a craftsman's work, okay, I would like to renovate something, even my electricity equipment, they have to go in and have to grasp, and at the end, they make a plan, but at the end, it is twice more expensive. And what we had done, at least, is thought, okay, why not we can take a photo of the switch box and identify if it is possible to grasp from that the entire DPP of the electricity of the house. This was the idea. And what we had done is, in September 2025, we made a feasibility study with a relevant association in their house. And we checked, and at this point in time, we were already on a 70% precision. So it's much better than having nothing. Yeah, 100% would be very much problematic. You can imagine if you are at least changing a plug or whatever. Yeah, this you cannot discover by just making a photo from the switch box. And in March 2026, means recently, we started exactly this project with having a demonstrator. And this demonstrator looks like this. This is the switch box, and we had here a lot of different components for exchanging and made out of that a photo and checked after the photo what is in the DPP and how trustful is it. And this was, sorry, you can see in behind there's a DPP on the left side, and on the right side there is a trust level we achieved at this point in time. This is not really to be seen, but you can see here one case is 91%. Here is the lowest 78%. Yeah. So this means this already helps, even it's not 100%. But for the electrician, it's already useful, because I had exactly this case last year when I had to renovate my heat pump. Yeah? There was a heat pump company, and then there was the plumber, and came into my house and said, okay, I have to do this and this. And I said, oh, no, not this, something else. Then he checked my old heat pump and told me, oh, the pipe is completely different what I have normally. I need a new tool and new parts. No, I have to go back to my retail company in order to take all these parts. So, and exactly with this solution, this craftsman's work, this plumber, can do a lot more work in a more efficient way. Yeah. So now my conclusion, after all these times, because I started with the point, okay, the industrial relevance is a problem for enterprise modeling. So what I would like to see is start with the business value in the first way. For some of you, it's quite easy to understand, but what I see is very much still a toy-oriented approach. I have a nice toy and I would like to apply. Looking to the example with the craftsman's work, it's the other way around. How to solve a business problem. Second is, with this precision of 80%, we have already a benefit. Of course, 100% is better, but we have already a benefit for the company. Start with that instead of waiting for 100%. The next one is early verification and validation, because if you can imagine the plumber, he will not trust AI because he do not understand. This means we need at least a validation and verification opportunities, and here exactly our models can help, because there you can follow what's happened. You can track and trace. And this is for research. We need a full stack engineering environment, because this case we could do because we had everything already in our labs to organize. So this is my conclusion: develop the complete own full stack developments, or let me say the engineering environments, in order to be safe and not dependent on others. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas. And I would like to ask you to remain on stage as we continue for the first panel of the summit. But thank you again for showing us the challenges that the of using AI in the industry projects. And we'll now continue, as I said, for the first main panel. And in this case, as you can see, the artificial intelligence becomes deeply embedded in our public service. We can see it in industries and digital infrastructures. But the focus is actually switching, because in this case, there is no longer just about what AI can do, but how we ensure that is done responsibly. So in this case, our first discussion, accountability and oversight in AI-enabled system, brings together a diverse group of experts to explore this very challenge. So join us also Thomas Keynote in our panel. Please welcome, with over 20 years of international expertise in law, compliance and data protection, she has been driven force behind Madeira's digital acceleration. Currently, the Regional Director for Competitiveness, Innovation and Sustainability. Please welcome Andrea Rosa Collard. Next, a specialist in diagnostic and interventional neuroradiology with international expertise spanning from Lisbon to Milan, a hospital assistant at Cesaram, and a guest lecturer at the University of Madeira. Please welcome Hugo Doria. And joining them is a full professor of information processing system at Pegaso University, where he directs the Research Center for Computer Vision and Extended Reality. With over 150 scientific publications, please welcome Luigi Gallo. Our next panelist opened our summit this morning. He is a full professor at the Nova University of Lisbon and director of the Uninova Center of Technology and Systems, with over 30 years of experience in European projects. Please welcome our General Chair, Ricardo Jardim Gonçalves. And to lead this important conversation, we do have an innovation manager and consultant with a decade of pan-European experience in deep tech and startup growth. Please welcome our moderator, Alexander Zobek. So Alexander, now it's up to you.
Everyone, such a pleasure to be on stage with fellow innovators and experts in various sectors and roles, and I think you've proven yourself over the place. But today we're here to discuss AI, and in particularly, we're focusing we'll focus on three topics, and mostly look around how responsibility in AI is interpreted, shared, and governed across AI value chains. So we will look from compliance all the way to the real world where oversight, skill, and trust is important to understand. We are not going to recap the AI Act in a theoretical purpose, but discuss practical pathways for trustworthy, human-centered AI. So, welcome, and let's start. So, with the first topic, responsibility. When AI-enabled systems causes error, harm, or an unacceptable outcome, where should the responsibility sit? So is it with the developer? Is it with the institution using the system, or a professional making the final decision, or somewhere in between? So let's start around, and yeah, we have around 10 minutes for the topic, and then we'll move on to the next one. So yeah, ladies first.
Okay, first of all, nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Welcome to Madeira. Everyone, is a very good topic to be talking about today. Especially, I'm going to give my point of view in relation to government institutions. So, when we're thinking about a democracy, people choose a person to be in charge. You know, people choose a party which is with people that people trust to make the right decision. So for me, accountability and responsibility lies within those people, independently of the tool that they choose or they may choose to use, not as decision making, because the final decision when it comes to government lies on the people that are behind it. For example, I'm going to give you an example. It's an extreme example, but you know, nowadays there's the war between United States and Iran. They're doing the negotiations. Imagine if there's a system, an AI system that they're using for negotiating a contract, for example, or negotiating measures, and the AI algorithm is set up for, okay, so what's, if they put in all the information of today's discussion, peace discussion, and at the end of the day, the system is made up to, okay, the result will be if the information, if they analyze information and information of both sides that do not agree, then there is something that happens. Imagine if that's a nuclear bomb, and the peace negotiation today didn't go very well, and automatically, that cannot be a decision that it's made by a machine, because it was not the machine that was elected to make that decision. It's the person. So for me, however, we need to be very careful, especially for government institutions, on the way that we use AI systems, because there are things that maybe can be controlled by faces, or by the type of information, or by the type of decision making that can be allowed a machine to do, and not a person.
Understood.
Yeah.
But with this being said, I would like to turn to Luigi. What happens if the user cannot understand the system well enough to challenge it, right? So what happens then?
Yes, this was also in the Thomas presentation, because he said if a plumber does not understand the interface, he will never accept. So sometimes the problem is not that the human is not in the loop. The human is in the loop, but the intervention is unrealistic, because I think what is overlooked is the design of how these systems should be understood by humans involved in this responsibility, because responsibility should be actionable. Now, what it means in concrete terms. First of all, we always speak about explainable AI. So you should explain, even in your presentation, Thomas, there was the explanation very well done, because when you was planning where to place buildings, and there was a concrete sentence explaining why decision was that one. So the point is, yes, you have to explain, but the explanation can be too long or too technical, so difficult to assess in the short time that the human has to take and inform control over this situation. So this is a problem. And another aspect, in my opinion, is the uncertainty. So we need to know the confidence that we have in these systems before taking a decision. So all the uncertainty of these systems should be made visible. So I think these are also the design should be part of the accountability architecture.
I see. Let's move now to Hugo, and from a clinical perspective, what do we not want the institutions to assume or to delegate to AI, but rather leave it to the user?
So this comes down a little bit to what you said earlier, which I completely agree. It should probably be a shared responsibility, but the final call, the decision making, should be centered in someone. And for context, I work with an AI software every day. We use a program called Brainomics. It's the name of the software. Basically, it screens every stroke that enters in our hospital. And I actually have it on my phone at all times, and I can look at it. Whatever exam is done in our hospital, I can look at it, but it also is evaluated by the software itself, and it gives scores that we have used for years, but it tries to classify the image and give a prognosis for each patient. So I kind of deal with this on a daily basis, and I can tell you, at least for now, that the machine itself is not enough to properly manage these patients, whether because there are false positives or false negatives. Almost every day I have to be consulted on what it is saying because there's either an error or the clinician is not confident on the result that it's giving. And this is, I think, a very good example of what you were saying, that decision making should be centered in a clinician that is experienced to deal with that. So I think answering your question, the worst thing that can happen is not have a professional with experience to digest what the software in this case is doing. If we look down the road, and if we start thinking what everyone is thinking most these days is whether AI will replace most of our work. And if it goes down that road, if we go down that road, what might happen is we have less profession, less people, less human, less, in my case, less clinicians to evaluate these images, and maybe there will only be one clinician for a bigger amount of exams to look at, and it will just verify quickly if the software is giving a good result or not. Because especially with machine learning, of course, the error rate will decrease in the next years. What I am seeing right now will probably not be what I will be seeing 5 years from now. Maybe we will not be as skeptical of what the results of the results that we're getting after the software has time to improve. And what might that do to us? We might be less capable, we might lose experience. Could we get to a point where I no longer have enough experience to judge the machine? Could we get to that point? And I think if we do get to that point, clinically, it would be alarming, because then the person that is in charge of decision making is not as well experienced as we had to be before AI was there.
So to an extent, we're getting down to what Thomas was saying in defining the business processes properly and thoroughly, and understanding what good traceability looks like from that perspective, both when establishing and later monitoring it, right? But then whether this accountability is more auditable than more of a rhetoric, right? So any comments from your perspective of business processes?
Yeah, this is exactly the case. By, let me say, overcoming this clash of normally you need unshared responsibility. So, but here it's quite problematic because there is a system and there's a human. So by having this kind of enterprise models where you can see where are the responsibilities on the different steps on the systems, then it's quite easier to select the right one. This is one part I would like to stress. This means that has something to do as well with education of people, but as well for the responsibility of the company or the organization who is bringing an AI on the market. So it means not having as all, as one box, really looking to the entire process. This is the first one. And the second is then reduce the, let me say, overarching instruments for track and for governance, because we have a lot of things to be done now, because there is a current JTC 21 in under Senelec dealing with the standardization of AI trust and so on. And it is for them very problematic to bring out the standards because of that everything is mixed up. So, and I would stress this, using this kind of systems we have already for having a certain assignment of responsibility to organizations who bring AI on the market and to apply. This is my statement, and then we may overcome the situation we have with cars in the end of the 19th century. Because you know, at the end of 19th century, we have Geshier, UK was by far most advanced in engineering. But why they didn't had taken this in car industry? There's at least one reason, because car was dangerous at this point in time, seeing in UK, and what they had done is to put a pedestrian in front of a car, and in order to warn the people, here is a car, this is dangerous. Yeah? So this means the car could not be faster than a pedestrian. So, and at this point in time, it was just 5 to 10 years time of regulation in UK lost his advantage. And I would like to avoid this.
Thanks. Just to wrap up with this topic of responsibility on a more technical manner. So, question to Ricardo. How often is the problem not the model itself, but rather the way systems and data are connected when it comes to responsibility?
Sorry, say again, what is the?
So how often is the problem not the model itself of AI, but rather the way systems and data is connected?
Okay, yeah. So good afternoon. Yes, indeed. Coming back to this point of responsibility, I really believe the main problem of the responsibility is absolutely in the human. And when we are talking about AI-enabled systems, the issues and the problems that we can face is absolutely driven by the human, because the systems are made by the humans. And when we are developing a mechanical system, we can have some mechanical failures. But here, when we are talking about AI, we are talking about software at the end. And as an engineer, if there is an issue, I mean, when we say, okay, there is a bug, something happened, this is a problem of the machine. No, it's not the problem of the machine. It's the problem who developed the model, who designed the model. The bug is from who designed the system. It's not the system himself that creates the bugs by himself. This does not happen. Even if it generates automatically code to be executed, who did the model, who designed the model to automatically generate the code is the responsible for that. So to put the fault of responsibility to the machine in this specific case, for me, this is a fallacy. The problem is, of course, in the human. But as it was already said here, education, skills are really fundamental. And this is, for me, as professor in informatics, it's my main concern, because more and more people people use the tools without knowing exactly for what this tool means. So this is like many years ago, we have a hammer, but we don't know what is the role of the hammer. So the hammer is very useful, but used in the wrong manner can create problems, can be an issue. If I use the hammer to kill someone, I mean, the fault is mine. It's not for the person that built the armor. So this is the kind of things that we have. But for me, what is really more important is really to assure that people are educated and have skills in order to understand how AI systems really work. And Luigi talked about explainable AI, which means that indeed, so the system itself tried to argue and to explain and to generate new things. And we all for sure used already AI tools and generative tools, and the system gives the answer with authority, saying this is that. And then if you complain, you say, you are right, then this is that. And after 3 or 4 interactions, is confirming exactly the opposite and saying, yes, this is what it is. And then you say, but you said this before. Yeah, but now you are right. You say, but I did a mistake. Yes, you are correct. So, so it's from us as humans that we need really to have the feeling and use the AI tools to help us to generate code, help us to get ideas, help us to write text, whatever, but the last word needs to be our words. And I had an interesting experience. I did not on purpose, but I tried, and it was interesting. I did just this question. If I have a concert, like concert number 1 piano, Tchaikovsky, with 100 musicians, if I reduce the number of musicians, what is now the duration of the concert? And the answer was immediate. It's half of the time. And then I said, this is not possible because the music is the same. And then the answer was, you are right. The sound will be lower half of the volume. So, this is this kind of, but if you are not sensible, you accept, because he says really, so who is the responsible if I say to my kid, look, if you have less musicians, the duration of the concert will be half of the time. Is mine, for sure. It's not from the system.
Well, difficult to summarize what you just said, but I hope everyone is on point. I would like us to slowly progress to interoperability as our second topic. And we often hear ourselves talking about how accountability is more of a legal issue or of an ethical issue, but in reality, we still have interoperability issues despite the fact that there is a system integration constantly among the stakeholders and as well as tools, right? So perhaps we start with Thomas and we talk about your experiences in interoperability, especially from our perspective of digital product that you have been working here.
Yes, in Digital Product Passport, currently we have a very overarching discussion about tools, toys, and technologies. After our experiences now 2 years in, let me say, industry, we could say this is maybe 5 to 10%. The most important point is data management in your own company, and even not for supply chain and all these things. So this is the first set. So looking to that, the perspective to grasp data by AI, because you have not a well-organized data management here for your product, I would really disagree. But this is currently in the discussion. So what is really interesting is, to some extent, I showed you, if there is a new market somewhere in US, how to grasp all the required regulations and standards which are relevant. This is an opportunity to be much faster, because we had seen companies, it took them months to discover what's happened there. So this is the first one. The second is at least how to establish as fast as possible interfaces to your partners and so on. Here, AI can help in order to be fast, and it is not problematic because with the test environment you see, okay, your new interface works or not, but you be much more faster to establish your network for getting data and for providing the data to the authorities, for instance. And these are my my learnings from those, let me say, 2 years, 3 years, where AI can really make a difference, which is more or less safe, and of course, which has to be work on a sound foundation.
So, Andrea, but from the government or regulatory perspective, looking into this digital accountability as well as interoperability, why do we find it so difficult to operationalize and maybe even govern?
Okay, so talking about the perspective of accelerating a digital transformation, and interoperability obviously is a must, okay? Because like the professor said, in terms of being more rapid, accelerating everything, and you know that government services usually people talk about bureaucratic, takes a long time to do something. So that has to a point to do with interoperability as well, because the systems do not connect with one another, and the information you provide to one department may not reach the other department, which then has to make the decision, or it's part of the process. So that's why it's more difficult to put in interoperability. We are now, in terms of the EU Commission, is now trying to do that between the member states with the EU wallet, ID wallet, where everyone in every member state of Europe can have their ID, they have their documentation with them in the ID wallet, so that can be accessible to everywhere you go and everywhere you are, which will make things easier. Now, that's accessibility, not interoperability, because our systems, even especially in different state members, can access that information if it's within your EU wallet, but then the systems cannot connect to the other systems. There's not that interoperability to make it faster and for you to have your service faster to you as well.
Thanks. To make a sharp turn, Hugo, on your end, in a time-critical healthcare environment, what happens when the data is fragmented and we actually have the opposite of interoperability?
Yeah, so this is something that happens everywhere, all over the world. You have private practices that do their own lab tests, their own CT, MRI scans, whatever, and the patient is given a CD or a pen drive with the examination. So there's no network of healthcare. And this is a very good example of where clinically there is a lack of interoperability. And this is almost everywhere I've been, I've seen this problem. It is a problem that is very difficult to solve. But it is a very ambitious demand from some countries that are already trying to work on that.
May I jump in here with an unusual question? Does it come to standardization that this problem is so difficult to settle because it can't be the technical? On technical side, we are equipped to solve the issue of yours, but yes. Why is it difficult? Is it the cultural aspect, or?
No, I don't think it's cultural, because it's everywhere, all over the world. I think it might be monetary, maybe, because you have private practices that would have to invest in a project that everyone would have to be on board with. And this is not something that is very easy to do once you already have established the way that some private practices and even public healthcare works would imply an investment that would have to connect several dots which are not regulated by the same people. So in idea, I think it's something that is very easy to solve, but it is actually difficult, I think, because it would involve a lot of people coming to terms with the way that their business would be run, if this makes sense. I'm going to give you another example that we lived recently here in Madeira. We had a cyber attack. So in 2023, we had no softwares. I had to write my reports by hand, and everything that we did in the hospital for a couple of months was done by hand. So there was almost no interoperability. We would have to, some of my colleagues would come to me to tell me what the patient was having, and I would go back to them. So I had to look at the examination straight from the machine that acquired the images. So having lived this apocalyptic scenario, which were some hard times, it showed me that it is actually a lot simpler to have such a network if you build it from the ground up. The problem, I think, going back to your question, is that you have a lot of systems that are already built, and having them interconnected with people that are managing their own businesses becomes very difficult.
Do you guys want to add something on this? Or?
I think this is a typical situation in hospitals because developing infrastructure. We had some projects in hospitals as well. So, and of course, the promise of the system providers are totally different.
Yes.
What you're explaining. Yeah? So there are the giants providing all these hospital IT systems. Yeah?
Yes.
So, but at the end, the idea behind is modularity. I think this has happened not only for hospitals, even for all business cases, to look for modularity in order to be able to exchange without additional, let me say, efforts and all these things. That's the most important point. Of course, I know the giants, and I do not spell them per names. They develop their hospital information systems even by buying others.
Exactly.
So, and this makes the thing very, very problematic.
Yes. Because then you would have to pick one,
yes.
And maybe the others would disappear, and this is logistically this.
So, and my advice is to really work on a modular architecture from now. Because if you don't start and be only dependent on this hospital information system provider, you will be dependent in the next 10 years as well. Yeah. So to create your own modular architecture and then select and change, this is my advice, because we had seen this not only in hospitals as well in the industry. Because you will, let me say, face two changes on your environment. This, all these things means connections to insurance companies, whatever. Yeah. So at least the giants will always try to bring you in their system. So my advice is to create your own architecture.
Yeah. It's just to think, this is very good advice, especially as we mentioned here, the cybersecurity attack, and when systems are all interoperable, and you know, when one gets attacked, it can affect the whole system. So it's important, yes, architecturally to be designed so it sort of stops, it's separated from the rest. So when we think about interoperability, we'll need to think about that before we connect other systems, especially. This is in the government institutions, it's very problematic, because once we allow others to connect to the system, then we are more vulnerable to these attacks.
And by the way, you have here next to me, one of our pioneers was present when we developed the ISO standard 11354, which deals with interoperability framework, just to understand how to make orthogonal design. All these things are already there, have to be maintained, but you have a citizen from Madeira to help you.
I have to chime in to say most of our softwares in our hospital are domestically made. So that is already a step that we've taken. And our IT department actually won an award for interoperability because of that. So no, of course we can't do everything, but that is something that they have done and have learned from what has happened. I think it's a good step.
So, as time is slowly running short, I will take the liberty to assume one thing over the topic 3, which is human oversight, and that is it's critical. We cannot neglect it. We just need to position it in the right places and exercise critical thinking when developing the system to oversee the AI system. And with that being, I do want to do a short closing round and go around the table and ask each of you to drop one sentence for the most overlooked condition for trustworthy deployment of an AI system.
Okay, I'll go with communication. To build trust, people need to know what it is. So the transparency and communication to the people about what it can do, what it can't do, what's supposed to be done with it is very important.
Thanks.
To quickly preface my sentence, I think it's very convenient for this session because of what people have been talking about, the bubble AI, if it's going to burst or not. I'm going to steal the sentence from a colleague of mine that is a very well-known neuroradiologist that told us in a meeting that AI will not replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And I think this is my sentence.
Thanks. Would you?
Well, I would say design for real use. I think that the design aspect has been overlooked. Design should be embedded in the interfaces, in the workflows. And another thing, pretty interesting, going back to the question of the musicians or Ricardo, this is also the reason why now we are working on new models. So also AI will change. We will have the word model, for example, to have an understanding on what could happen if, your example, or the neurosymbolic approach. So new AI models will require also new approaches. But the design, when it comes to human, that has to oversight, then the design, in my opinion, is critical.
Thanks.
Well, what I can say in a short sentence, I will go for the major challenge, that is the semantic interoperability. Because we are always looking for better and better interoperability, and most of the times the systems are designed or to be dominated by the giants, as it was mentioned here, or they are developed without this concern to be interoperable, not just at syntax level, but interoperable at semantic level. I mean, to be sure that when we are, for example, using a module or developing a system to be interoperable with the other, what I intend to say, the way I organize the data, the way I can read the data is understandable exactly in the same manner that I want. And when we go for AI, many times, and that's the reason the system answered me in this way, when I did the question, I mean, semantically, the system does not understood exactly what I mean. And if between humans it's very difficult to sometimes what I'm saying is understood exactly in the same manner from the person that is listening to me and vice versa, between machines or between humans and machines, it is even more complex. And for me, this is now a key point that also needs to be addressed. And just a final note, we are talking about interoperability as the solution for everything. But a solution for a problem can be break the interoperability. And we know that. We talked about cybersecurity, and also we know, and this is not from this century, from the past, we know there are many countries, for example, probably don't know, but between Portugal and Spain, the range, so the distance between the railways for the trains are different. And the reason is simple, is to avoid that a train can run without stop between the borders between Spain and Portugal. And this is a historical reason for defense. So I mean, to break interoperability can be also part of the problem. So when we talk about interoperability, we need to think exactly what we intend with the solution.
Thank you, Ricardo. And Thomas?
For me, the most overseen issue is that we need a proper engineering foundation of that. Means to have the right architecture, not only IT, responsibility we had seen, this is the business environment, and of course in a way this architecture, and we have Nicola here, he's dealing with that, in a way that we see as well options for disruption. Not taking this architecture as rigid, it's as well for having the options for disruption, but then having an engineering environment, see what does it mean if we, let me say, change something radically. Yeah. And this proper engineering foundation is currently missing and overseen, because we see the toy-oriented approach is fine, yeah, to discover, but on the other hand, in order to have it sustainable, we need this foundation.
Thank you. Well, we hope you enjoyed our session. We may have went over time a bit, but yeah, I hope it was valuable, and I want to thank all the participants. Your insights are quite genuine and very insightful, so thank you. And yeah, do drop by F6's booth, and we can talk more about our projects and how we can collaborate and design next level solutions. So,
good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. Obrigada, Ricardo. Obrigada, Andrea, Hugo. Grazie, Luigi. E danke, Thomas. Thank you. And in this case, we will now move into the workshops and panel sessions, which will be running, as you know, simultaneously across the venue. So in this case, please refer to your digital agenda, in this case, for the specific location and time, so you don't miss anything. But allow me to tell you that before we wrap up the afternoon, a quick reminder. So tonight it is our typical dinner at Restaurant Montanha. It's a wonderful, for sure, opportunity to continue our conversation, but in a more relaxed setting. Also, allow me to remind you as well that tomorrow we will be reconvene right here in this auditorium at 9 a.m. to resume our program. So in this case, I hope you have a lovely afternoon. And in here in the auditorium, we will see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.